Remarks, I would like to kindly invite Professor Chavez Khan, who is the Director and Representative of UNESCO Jakarta office, to provide his remarks.
Thank you, dear Nora Gale. Professor Devi Korita Karnawati, Chair of the Intergovernmental Coordination Group for Indian Ocean Tsunami Early Warning and Mitigation Systems, ICG, IOTWMS, and of course, the head of BMKG. Very nice to meet you again on this webinar, and thank you for your excellent intervention. And we just heard Dr. Animesh Kumar, the OIC, and the Deputy Head of the UNDRR and the Regional Office for Asia and Pacific. And of course, Dr. Harkunti Riau, Chair of the Working Group 1 of the ICG IOTWMS and the Chair of the Indonesian Disasters Experts Association, and Ms. Nora Gale, who is kindly moderating this session from the Intergovernmental Coordination Group for Indian Ocean Tsunami Early Warning and Mitigation System, Secretariat of UNESCO-IOC, and my very dear colleague, Mr. Ardito Kodiat, the head of the Indian Ocean Tsunami Information Center of UNESCO-IOC, very importantly, in partnership with BMKG. And of course, the Tsunami National Contacts of Indian Ocean Island States, the representatives of IOTWMS, Indian Ocean Island States. I welcome you all, and this is really an important day for us to remember tsunamis. All presenters and participants, I'm sure we will have the opportunity to learn more about what is the state of the art on this World Tsunami Awareness Day, which is commemorated every year on the 5th of November. Before we start on this very important commemoration, I wish to remember and convey my deepest sympathies to the victims, the families, and all those who are impacted by the earthquake and tsunami that hit the western province of İzmir, Turkey on Friday, October 30. We pray for those who have suffered and wish them to have the strength to overcome this tragedy. And let us take this recent event as a continuous reminder about the importance of being tsunami ready community. In the consideration of the recent events, it is good to note that the work of UNESCO-IOC and UNDRR working together for the webinars creating World Tsunami Awareness is very important. So within UNESCO-IOC, there are 4 intergovernmental coordination groups for tsunami early warning and mitigation: the Caribbean, the Indian Ocean, the Northeast Atlantic, and the Mediterranean Seas, or as we call it, NEAMS, and the Pacific. The Caribbean held their webinar yesterday, and today we have other webinars in the Indian Ocean, NEAMS, and the Pacific. So a very important day. This year's theme of the World Tsunami Awareness Day closely links with Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, Target E, very important, which is about substantially increasing the number of countries with national and local disaster risk reduction strategies by 2020, which is basically this year. So UNESCO, IOC, UNDRR have agreed to focus on 2 essential components. One is to set up and to effectively maintain the risk reduction strategies for the vulnerable communities and scientific expertise and indigenous knowledge and the memory which comes from these disasters. So, distinguished colleagues and participants, in the Indian Ocean, the title of our webinar today is World Tsunami Awareness Day webinar on Tsunami Ready in Indian Ocean Island States. The topic of Tsunami Ready addressed the first of the 2 essential components I mentioned, setting up and effective maintenance of risk reduction strategies. The main goal of UNESCO IOC Tsunami Ready program is to improve the preparedness of the coastal communities, and they should be ready for the tsunami emergencies so that we can minimize the loss of life and property. UNESCO IOC Tsunami Ready is a community performance-based program in building tsunami preparedness Implementing this tsunami ready program, the community will effectively build their capacity in tsunami risk reduction through a well-structured and systematic approach, covering mitigation, preparedness, and response. And this will be based on the best scientific knowledge as well as practical and what are the local indigenous knowledge and the best practices. It is therefore the tsunami readiness is built on the community's ability to set up tsunami reduction strategies, and it certainly represents a very high level of preparedness, fulfilling a set of established guidelines and indicators. As you see in the agenda today, there will be a session elaborating 12 indicators. To effectively maintain the tsunami risk reduction strategies within UNESCO-IOC Tsunami Ready program, UNESCO-IOC provides an incentive. And incentive is that UNESCO-IOC recognizes the communities which have built such capacity, implemented measures, and have very closely followed those indicators of the tsunami ready. So once a community is recognized, it's called UNESCO IOC Tsunami Ready Community. So this is a very big recognition. Being recognized as UNESCO IOC Tsunami Ready, the community have the responsibility to continue to maintain and ensure the sustainability of their preparedness level. At present, there are only 26 communities in 10 countries that have received the UNESCO IOC Tsunami Ready recognition, mostly in Caribbean and Pacific. Only 2 communities in Indian Ocean received this recognition, as has been mentioned, Venkat, Raipur, and Nolai Sahi in Odisha in India. So those communities are really appreciated for their initiative. Today, we will hopefully develop a broader understanding of IOC UNESCO Tsunami Ready program. We'll discuss the challenges, gaps, and needs to implement the tsunami ready indicators in Indian island states. The expected outcomes of this webinar are certainly clear recommendations for implementation and moving from pilot to all the way for every community to be tsunami ready, hopefully by implementing all those indicators in Indian Ocean island states. So ladies and gentlemen, World Tsunami Awareness Day flagship event tomorrow, which is the 5th of November, is on the 3rd World Tsunami Museum Virtual Conference. This is in line with the second component, scientific expertise and indigenous knowledge and memory. UNESCO Office Jakarta, through the Indian Ocean Tsunami Information Center of UNESCO IOC, have been working very actively for many years. And it is under a program called Preserving Past Tsunami Information for Future Preparedness. This program has been focusing on the issue of limited public information on tsunamis. The program has been active since 2004. Data, information, records, reports from past events which are scattered and very hard to find, very limited, as there are no eyewitness stories in many cases which were documented. So certainly there were no videos at that time. So making sure we bring all this information together, have the local and contextualized information and policy, as well as we create awareness and preparedness for the local people. The program started in 2014 with the documentation of 1945 Makaran tsunami survivor and eyewitness stories. The program has continued with the documentation of the 1950 Ambon tsunami, the 1992 Flores tsunami, and 1994 Bangyowangi tsunami. So most recent documentation is on the stories of the survivors and eyewitnesses of 1927, 1938, 1968, 2008 earthquake and tsunamis in central Sulawesi. We managed to document 30 survivors and eyewitnesses and their stories from central Sulawesi. Some of these video documentaries will be shown as part of the 30-day World Tsunami Awareness Day social media campaign. I encourage you to monitor these. See UNESCO Office Jakarta website, IOTIC, and UNESCO-IOC social media through our Facebook, as well as Twitter and Instagram. Distinguished colleagues and participants, let me end my remarks by thanking all of you for attending this webinar, for coming together for this very important cause, for this productive and hopefully fruitful discussion. I'm sure you will contribute to an important recommendation that UNESCO, IOC, and UNDRR could take into their consideration to support their members, especially in tsunami risk reduction plans. Thank you to the speakers for sharing their knowledge and experience. Also, special thanks to colleagues from UNESCO Office Jakarta, the IOTIC, which is with UNESCO working with BMKG, ICG, IOTWMS Secretariat. Thank you for working very hard to bring us to where we have this webinar. I look forward to hearing the result of the webinar, and from UNESCO Regional Science Bureau for Asia Pacific, Jakarta office, we welcome you all to work together and to produce something we can be proud of, and we help make this world a safer place. Terima kasih, thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Khan, for welcoming us all to this webinar on tsunami ready in the Indian Ocean island states and sharing your vast knowledge from the UNESCO perspective in all areas of tsunami, especially the Tsunami Ready program. I'd like to conclude the opening session